the ability to do improvements alongside planned developments, and the phasing reflects that for it. And the key thing is to get a design that tells us where we'd ultimately like to get to in terms of pavement lines, so we can build out what we can, hold back on what we might need to, and bring it along later when the development happens, as we're doing on King William Street at the moment. So as you know, the rest of that project is paused whilst we wait for the development to come along and then deliver the rest of it. So I think we'll balance those individual developments as they come forward for it. But I think, again, I don't think you were suggesting this, but obviously what we can't do is wait for some perfect end state when everything's done and then we'll do it. It's more a case of just managing it as we go through the detail.
And Siobhan, another thing is that if we are more developments in the area, there's more chance of the funding coming to do the stuff. Marianne.
Thank you. In the past, we've always had projects which we've had sort of in a draft form up on the shelf, so that if we've got some extra funding that's come our way via TfL or Business Section 106 or whatever, we've been able to pull it off, dust it down, refresh it, consult on it, make it more up to date and purposeful, and being able to proceed at pace, and that's always allowed us to get that scoop up that extra funding that might be washing around in the system. So that's just how I see this document. I see this as draft projects which we will at times pull down, make them more relevant, because the city's dynamic, it's changing, as we've seen with our jury. So I welcome this, but I wanted to ask a question about the about Vine Street, about which way will the one-way vehicular traffic be going. At the moment, you've got the lovely cobblestones, which are quite atmospheric, and it gives the area a sense of history, especially for the Rippertors. So would we be resurfacing that because of for the bikes? They have a cycle lane on the Minories already, and there's the cycle lanes in Trinity Square coming off the Super Cycle Highway. But the real eyesore in Vine Street is the Network Rail Bridge, and the Aldgate Connect bid have attempted to beautify it, if you like, but we've come up against Network Rail, who've literally said we're not allowed to touch any of the structure on the bridge. Currently, it's dripping, it's leaking. You've got the pigeon proofing needs to be proofed. You've got the pigeons there. So what can we do to encourage Network Rail to take ownership of their structure and ensure it's an inviting environment for the public to be able to come along Vine Street? Bearing in mind, we're going to be putting a lot of money into America's Square, public space, Crescent, and down at Tower Gardens. And we want to encourage people to use that route up to Aldgate. So what pressure can we put on Network Rail to address the issues with their structure and work with us so that we can enhance that? Thank you.
The issue of the one way hasn't been decided yet. As the policy says, we will explore which is the best option. In terms of the cobbles under there, we had an access audit done by Transport for All, and the pavements under there are too narrow for anybody really, but particularly wheelchairs, things like that. So we'd like to raise the carriageway under there to make it a single surface, to make it much more accessible. And I don't think we'd keep the cobbles if we're raising the surface like that. In terms, you want to answer about Network Rail or?
Network Rail, I was just thinking we have had some engagement with them and feedback as part of the project on Fenchurch Street Station. I thought they'd finally come back with some, even if it was to say they weren't doing anything on the private area around the private road outside the station. So that's probably the hook to raise it with them at a local level at least, because it tends to be managed at station by station basis. But perhaps we can pick it up with them as part of that discussion. But say Network Rail are not the easiest for us in terms of leverage. Perhaps I can put it that way.
It's a major feature that runs through my ward with a number of the arches, and they do suffer from graffiti, neglect, and it looks really bad. So unless we address that, it doesn't matter how much we're doing our part and enhancing and encouraging, that just even looks worse. So we really need to get hold of them and bring them to the table.
Tim, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple of points on this. I do have my concerns at the consultation. I mean, you know, huge number of pages on each street, and very few people responding. I'm not entirely sure how much one could take from that. For example, page 206, streets east of Mark Lane, 8 respondents. I mean, if you ask, and the questions are skewed, if you ask people they like more planting, you know, most people in who you would ask would say yes. Would you like wider pavements? Well, people would say yes. So I have my concerns about that, and I'd very much like to know how much this consultation cost. On some specifics, I'm very concerned at the potential widening of the pavements in Fenchurch Street. It is buried in this document, but it is a bus diversionary route. You don't want to make it too narrow that you can't get a bus down there in the event that TfL need to put buses down Fenchurch Street. There is very little, if any, mention about the taxi access and the taxi rank at Fenchurch Street Station. It is very important. It is a terminus. It is a London terminus. And we need to be able to make sure that taxis can get in and out and be able to use Fenchurch Street. That hasn't been addressed as far as I can see. And just as a small point, on the subject of Rood Lane, you talk about suggesting seating and all the rest of it. It's a very, it's a lane which is always in a shadow. It's cold and it's windy. And I can't imagine anybody would ever want to sit in Rood Lane for 99% of the weather. So I think you might give that some more thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Officer first confirm that TfL has been consulted on the bus route through Fenchurch Street with the widened pavements.
TfL have been consulted on the whole plan, and we've had a series of responses from all of the TfL departments. And the carriageway width will be suitable for buses and safe for cyclists.
Okay, that's the first point. Now, Tim had some other points as well.
What about the taxis and Fenchurch Street Station?
Well, the road in front of the station is not city highway. So we've written to them. We asked if they've got any proposals to change anything there, and at the moment they don't. So we wouldn't be changing anything in the way of taxi access with the proposals that we've got so far in the plan, but all the proposals have to be designed in detail. And in terms of the consultation numbers, when we had the consultation portal, and we did do more publicity and more push outs than any other consultation we've done, and we can see on the portal over 5,000 people looked at the portal. But one of the issues with this consultation was that there wasn't anything controversial that people didn't like, and therefore they weren't particularly. At the consultation meetings, everybody who came said to me, "What's not to like?" So we always anticipated less responses because people weren't going to be angry or upset about what we're proposing.
Thank you, Stephen. I think that was a great answer. And then Siobhan, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the just having done item 7, how is the ward councillor music on this? I know you've done general consultation, but how are the ward members reacting to this?
Well, we've met 2 since the consultation who are very enthusiastic. Councillor Fredericks came along to one of the consultation meetings and we had a long chat, and I assume you're content with what we did. We haven't had any negative feedback, let's put it that way.
The point is, as these projects come forward individually, there will be a greater opportunity for consultation. And I have to say, you know, the officers you can take a horse to water, you can't force it to drink. The consultation was at a time when people are busy, it was during the day, it's very hard to reach people. But when you actually start having a project which is actually going to start work, people are more alive to it and they're more involved. So as I said, I see this as a draft collection of projects which will be pulled out when the funding's available, dusted down, reassessed and then consulted. And at that point, people will know that the project is going ahead and it's their final opportunity to get involved.
Thank you, Marianne. I think it's a good point to ask people to raise their hands in favour of. All agreed. Some of you agreed. Right, let's move on then. So now we are on number 6, transforming Fleet Street. Right, so there's 2 options on Fleet Street, but let's be very clear, we're not deciding on them at all. What the idea is to keep them both. Oh, you're going. Both live, and then deal with one or the other probably a year away. But because there's 2, I did ask officers to explain them, and I didn't like it's very difficult to see them on a small screen. So we've got some big sheets of paper for officers to basically describe the 2 schemes. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Here's another one.
Thank you, Chair.
You guys got one? You okay, Tim?
Oh, no. There's option 1 and option 2. There should be 2.
Okay, let's. I'll.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Can I just check everyone has option 1 and option 2 before I start? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the Transforming Fleet Street project seeks to transform the length of Fleet Street between Chancery Lane and Ludgate Circus through a range of highway and public realm interventions and changes. These transformative highway and public realm changes are needed to allow the street to adapt to the changing needs of the Fleet Street area and accommodate the expected increase in the number of people working, living, and visiting in the wider area. I think we all know there is an anticipated 25% increase in the number of workers to the area due to the large-scale local developments which are expected to be complete within the next 5 years. This report presents 2 highway options proposed to go to public consultation next year in 2026. Both highway options respond to the expected increase in the number of people to the area, and both options seek to maximize opportunities for pavement space and deliver a high-quality public realm and respond to the early engagement needs with stakeholders. In terms of option 1 and 2, highway designs, I'll start by saying that both highway designs have been developed by city officers alongside Transport for London. Both options are a marked improvement in comparison to the existing Fleet Street environment that is there today. Both options are slightly different, and they both offer slightly different changes to the highway layout, and I'll take you through those now. So in terms of option 1, within this option, there is a traffic restriction. This restriction provides the opportunity for the maximized reallocation of space. This option also enables the need to remove the eastbound bus lane. Specific to the traffic restriction, this includes all general traffic with the exception of buses, taxis, and local access, meaning that businesses along Fleet Street can still continue to be serviced. In regards to option 2, there are no changes to the overall highway layout, so it very much stays the same. The bus lane eastbound remains in place. This option still offers the opportunity for pavement widening, but to a lesser extent in comparison to the first option. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Explain the difference between the two then.
Do you want me to?
Slowly.
Oh, okay, sorry, I speak quickly. So option one, there is a traffic restriction between Salisbury Court, Salisbury Court and Ludgate Junction.
Yes.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Then, and if you continue going on, there's Ludgate Circus Junction.
Charlotte Street then to there.
Yeah.
So the traffic restriction into Salisbury Court or out of Salisbury Court?
No, along Fleet Street. Yes. It excludes all general traffic with the exception of buses and taxis and local servicing.
In one direction.
In one direction, yes, the
So you can come
eastbound
here.
direction.
If I may, so yeah. So the key difference, westbound traffic unaffected. We're not intending to change that, albeit move the curb lines, all the usual things. The key difference between the two is that option one takes out the bus lane, but also as a compensation to that reduces eastbound traffic and restricts eastbound traffic as it approaches Ludgate Circus. So that very eastern end of Fleet Street becomes buses, taxis, motorcycles only. So you have less traffic going eastbound, allows you to then take the bus lane out, which allows you to then make bigger public realm gain because you don't have to accommodate as much traffic. So effectively it's taking the through traffic out of Fleet Street eastbound.
Where would that traffic divert to? The
That-
eastbound traffic?
That would then go via Holborn Circus. Yeah.
Sorry. So it would go up. Yeah, so it would go up Holborn. It would go up Fetter Lane across Holborn Circus, and then we're envisioning down Warwick Lane.
And whereas option two says we leave the bus lane in, we leave the traffic as is, we don't mess with the through traffic on Fleet Street, but that then require that we need to accommodate that current level of traffic along Fleet Street, and therefore the ability of us to narrow the street down and create more public realm benefit is slightly more restricted. So either way around, in both options, there will be the opportunity for moving curbs, for creating space, for planting, pedestrian flows, all those sorts of things. And the option is effectively saying, if you look at taking out through traffic in one direction, we could have more public realm benefit. If you don't take it out, you'll still have some public realm benefit, but maybe not quite so much. And that really is the choice. And bearing in mind other matters recently, genuinely we are interested in people's views and we will consult widely. We know the local ward members have a view. They would prefer to maximise the opportunity of the public realm benefit, but we know others may feel the impact on through traffic is something they want to consider. But to be clear, buses and taxis, the plan is, would still be able to go through. So the taxi argument that we have in other places shouldn't be applicable here. It is much more about through traffic in general.
But that's a clear way of seeing the difference. But it might like.
Thank you, John. So in option one, there is the opportunity to gain 1.5 to 2 meters of additional footway. So the equivalent, to visualize it, is just over 4 tennis courts of additional pavement space. In relation to option two, there's the opportunity for 1 meter to 1.5 meter of additional pavement space. And so to visualize that, just over 3 tennis courts.
May I ask, Chair, about the new police headquarters and magistrates court? Is there any? I wasn't quite sure how they might be impacted and whether they've had a chance to input.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Deborah. Go ahead.
Thank you. That's a really good question. We have engaged with the City of London Police, and we have also spoken to the courts as well. They have provided some very initial design feedback because we're at the very, very early stages of the project. So they have provided some very helpful feedback, which we have integrated into the overall project.
Alison, go ahead.
Yeah, a small point that you seem to have two bus stop Ws. There's a Chancery Lane bus stop W and there's a Fetter Lane bus stop Ws. I think one of them must be another letter. That's just a minor point that worries me. There aren't two W bus stops, are there?
No, I will
Okay,
look at that and
that's
have the
right.
plans amended. Thank you for
That's
bringing
right.
that to attention.
And the other point is, my recollection is that Fleet Street's always been one of our most polluted streets. And also it's one of the streets that was predominantly for road traffic collisions. A lot of them caused by vans opening doors into cycles, cycling along and a cycle slamming into the door and things, awful things like that. How have you looked at this proposal by reference to both air quality and also road traffic collisions, please, and the impact of either one or two?
In terms of air quality, we do have monitors along Fleet Street. We haven't, so they do generally collect data. It's not a specific output of this project. However, having consulted with the city's air quality team, they did say when you extend pavements, you have generally better air quality. And then with the greening that we are proposing, at this stage, again, very high level, and it still needs to be worked out. So with the low level greening and then trees planted strategically along the street that will enhance local air quality.
If I can just step in there, there was a report to Port Health Environment just showing how within 1 metre of the carriageway, the pollution drops off. So if you, but at the moment in Fleet Street, you can't do that because it's. Oh, sorry, carry on, answer the question. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sorry. In terms of the road traffic collisions, yes, so we have taken that into consideration in both design options, option 1 and option 2. We have built in cycle safety measures for both options. Option one does give you more enhanced cycle safety options.
Marianne?
In your option where you want to remove the traffic on the eastern ends, and you've got your journey times, which suggests there's only an increase of 30 seconds on the journey time. I do tend to find that, you know, when you look at your sat nav, it will tell you to get from A to B, it will take a 9-minute journey, but the reality is it could take you 40 minutes because of the traffic. So I do get a bit dubious about these type of figures. What volume of traffic will we be moving onto the side streets, and especially the number of deliveries which should be going to these new buildings? So do we have an idea of the level, the volume, and the real impact of if we do start shifting it around? Because as I said, I really don't believe it's going to take 30 seconds extra on a journey time. I think it will be a lot longer, and that goes from experience.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So in terms of general traffic along Fleet Street, we have done a series of traffic counts. Overall, the traffic levels are very low in both the AM and PM peak in comparison to other parts of the city. In terms of traffic that will, for option 1, that will need to be diverted along up Fetter Lane, the numbers overall at this early stage are quite small. So around just under 100 in the AM peak and 80 in the PM peak. To address your point in terms of the impacts on traffic journey times, so that's currently what has come from the modeling that we've done to date. But as the project moves into the next phase, we will continue to be looking in that and assessing it in more detail to understand, to ensure that we have a thorough understanding of the rerouting impacts.
Will there be any changes to the timing of the traffic junctions up on Chancery Lane? Because if you're coming along Chancery Lane and you wanted to turn into I think one of the roads up there, you tend to get just one vehicle at a time through because the time changing isn't very long. And what would the impact be of putting more traffic up on Chancery Lane in Holborn with the tunnels that we've just granted in planning, with the level of tourists that are going to be coming up into that area? Will there be an impact up there? And again, safety, given they're supposed to be having millions of visitors visiting these tunnels and accessing this and the other, you know, I'm just concerned about shifting traffic around. Whilst it sounds great, it's the actual impact on Holborn and Chancery Lane up there, which does tend to be very busy anyway, and it's sort of pushing it to the fringes of the Islington Borough, Camden.
No, that's a fair point. So as I did mention, the numbers are traffic numbers that will need to use Fetter Lane up to Holborn. The numbers are quite small, but we will take that away and look at it in the next phase of development in terms of the modelling as well. And I'll take away the point in terms of safety. I think that's helpful. Thank you.
To say all of these points we're going to take in around, because we're doing public consultation here. There's a lot of modelling work still to be done. That consultation will give us a steer as to which of the two key aspects of the scheme that we want to progress with, and that will determine how much time and effort we put into looking at these sorts of questions, and that will pick up things like planning changes in the area. Holborn Circus is one of those junctions we've got in our Healthy Streets Vision Zero agenda as well. So I mean, all of these is the usual thing. We've got a jigsaw puzzle of everything to fit in here, and it's really just, this is a great scheme either way round that we end up delivering this.
Thank you, Ed. And before I get to you, Matthew, just to note, because I'm you know the FSQ extremely well. The bid is really behind us. In fact, this is their premier project. So all of the businesses who contribute to FSQ are all heavily involved and excited about this. So Matthew, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure, sorry if I'm repeating, with the air quality and the consequential impact of rerouting the traffic, how far out will you start the modelling from in terms of looking at rerouting traffic? Because, you know, just thinking logically about, we're talking about improving the air quality in one place, but I suspect it'll just get worse in the other.
If you look at page, I've lost my numbers, sorry, 379, in Appendix 5, there is a small map above the table with the journey times, and where that has the traffic lights, that's basically the size of our model as it stands at the moment. And as we progress through the traffic modelling, we don't really expect that traffic model to extend, but if there's an indication that it needs to, then it will do that, and then we'll be able to assess what the impacts would be for air quality.
Okay, thanks. So I guess my question stands in terms of somebody travelling east to west or west to east and choosing the route that they can now follow. The consequential impact around Holborn, I'm just imagining lots more queuing of cars and weight of traffic elsewhere. That's what I'm bothered about.
So in the next stage of traffic modelling, that's where the mitigation measures start to come in. So that's where Marianne's point about traffic signal changes start to come as kind of the lowest level of mitigation. So we'll start looking at all of those traffic signals that are indicated on that plan as to whether or not they need modifying for the different demands coming from the different arms. With the if option 1 was chosen and eastbound traffic was reduced heading into Ludgate Circus, for example, that would need less time to be able to clear, which would then mean that you could give more time on other arms. And then that's kind of the same principle with the other junctions, that the demand shifts around the different arms and you can move the time, but it just takes a little time to get to that point. But that would be the first form of mitigation.
Seeing no more questions, are we okay to vote this to go ahead? Yes. Right. I'll do it. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Alison. Yeah, maybe you should go through the decisions quickly, just because there's money involved. So yes, there's 5 decisions.
So
Do you want me to read them for you? I'll do it. I'll do it. So it's recommendations on page 345. Additional budget 447,000. 2 highway designs as we discussed. To go forward, proceed with the public consultation exercise based on the highway options as we just discussed. And then the goal project's total estimate cost is 9.5 to 10.5 million. I think some of that's coming from the bid, isn't it?
Yes, the bid had committed 500,000.
Only 10, only, okay, 5%. And authorize the city to enter into a letter of agreement with Fleet Street Quarter bid to confirm the details regarding, oh, okay, right. There, how, do you have something? Yeah. All good? All good? Right, thank you. So we've dealt with 7 already. Thank goodness. Let's do it again.
Could I just ask a question on 7 on the voting? Did you not say it was 5-5? But there's only not.
If it was 5-5, it would be a different outcome, Tim. It was 5-4. You won by 1 vote. Goodness. Right, 8. We're nearly towards the end. Moorgate. Yeah, we're getting there. Right now, in the drawings, there's actually a little wee option of 1 or 2 way, but actually that's not relevant. I mean, basically, the main point here is to tie in the section 278 from a development into the greater scheme. So that's all we're voting on really now. So is that a good idea to tie their money in? All in favour? Okay, right, that was done. So you don't have to speak at all, officers. Right. Fan Street. Jackie, I'll let you deal with this one.
Thanks. Because it's golden name. Well, I mean, I don't know, Ben, if you want to present, and then I've got a couple of points to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. So yes, as the report sets out, this is about the Van Street project, which is phase 3 of the Cool Streets and Greening programme. And this report is seeking approval to start works. Key decisions set out for the committee include the total budget being approved for the project to get to the next gateway and start those works, and drawing down a costed risk provision. The project development to date has really centred around local stakeholder consultation, with several in-person and online updates. The construction programme is due to begin February 2026, and there will be a final local stakeholder update in January to provide an update on those programmes. Yes, so any questions? Thank you.
I mean, I'm all in favour of it in general terms. I must say, since I last saw it, I'm a bit disappointed there aren't more trees or any trees. I mean, we're preserving what's there. You've got lots of good ways of making sure that the current trees don't get bashed by the building works. And, you know, I know it's going to look lovely and complement the wildlife garden across the road. Is there any scope in which we can insist that the contractors, who presumably will be FM Conway, use electrical equipment only on this site? It's something that they've done at St Paul's Gyratory, and they've made a big thing about it, which all of their major road work vehicles and stuff like that are all electric, and they're charged by the charge ferry that comes every night and charges them up. And I just wondered, you know, it's really great for the environment, and it's very quiet as well, because the machines work on electric, so they're not being very noisy, and it's very clean as well. And especially this is a residential area here. And FM Conway, if it is FM Conway, and I'm assuming it is, it's our term contractor, you know, are keen to show off their interests in innovation in this. So I just wondered whether we can specify it specifically, please.
Yes, in respect of the contractor being employed on this particular work, if it is through the city's term contractor, we can have discussions with them about deploying that electric apparatus that currently is being utilised on St Paul's Gyratory, or potentially additional electric apparatus. But as we all know, there is quite a large investment from these companies in the electric plant, and it's an ever-changing environment in respect to the battery power. But yeah, we would definitely have those conversations with them, bearing in mind the environment where that will be deployed.
So I have a question. Well, it's a point and then a question. So we agreed. I mean, what I do want to do is acknowledge Imagine Golden Lane's support and consultation on this, because I think that was really important, and I think it was fantastic that we had a resident engagement at that level on this project. So also taking Alison's point that I think we've reached a really good program. So to acknowledge Imagine Golden Lane and thank them for that work. I just had a question which I have raised, but just for clarity. There is Barbican Podium Works going to be happening. There is a proposal to put the skip on the corner of Fanchurch Street and Goswell Street. And I'm just wondering about the timing of this work and that work that's happening, and just any impact that will have on this project.
Yeah, Chair, in respect of the construction projects that are taking place, I can comment that the Highway Authority doesn't normally allow for a skip just to be left upon the public highway in those instances. Obviously, through negotiation, we may well end up with pit lanes or other service areas in the appropriate places that won't affect residents and businesses, and access is an important thing into these areas. I believe construction management plans are submitted as part of a lot of these regeneration and development works, at which the transportation planners and the highway engineers meet on a weekly basis to go through those details and those submissions about the best way to facilitate the delivery of these works. A lot of the time we'll try and get those service areas inside the development work. Obviously, you can appreciate sometimes when it's a refurbishment and nothing is being demolished, sometimes we have to allow an access area outside, but that is not the norm. We would try and keep it within inside the development.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Chair. Can you explain the slippage to me, please? Arboreocultural is a lovely word, but what does that mean, please? And is that something that we've now got a grip on that isn't going to be repeated? So that's one. And then the other one was the increase in budget by £110,000. Can you explain exactly where that's going to and why? And the last bit is how is this coordinating in with other works around Golden Lane? Because obviously we've now committed to some major refurbishments around that. How is this plugging into all of that big picture stuff now?
Thank you. I'll take that point by point. So to address your first point, the slippage around the arboricultural constraints is mainly due to the existing tree roots, which is something that wasn't anticipated at the inception of the project. It is a major lesson learned throughout the programme. I think obviously conserving existing trees is obviously a top priority. So the investigations have now taken place and have been factored into the construction design and the construction approach, which leads me into the second point around the budget increases. So to conserve and protect the trees, one of the main cost factors that we have had to take on board is the construction approaches. And when I say construction approaches, I mean primarily where we have to excavate around the tree roots. We have to use specialist methods, which the term contractor has charged for in this instance. And then the other cost factor that we've had to factor in is the maintenance costs, which are committed for 20 years, and we have to cover that through our works that we are delivering. And then the third and final point is we have taken forward consultation with the project management team on the project that you're referencing, and we will be continuing that and ensuring that there is alignment for that. Thank you.
Two points, if I may. First of all, I was wanting to ask about the south side of Fan Street, because your colleagues may remember that we did have sort of urination problems from particularly the minicab drivers there, and there was an additional planter put in. So it was just whether there was any other mitigation factors that might be in place to help with that. And secondly, it was one on signage for the improving Golden Lane Leisure Centre to make sure that the public are aware that they can access the leisure centre through the area or not, if that's whatever the case is.
Thank you. So I think on the first point, that was dealt with by the City Operations Division. I think that the further mitigations, I think the mitigation you're referring to actually reused the existing blocks that were there, planter blocks. So I think that issue will be continue to be monitored. And then in terms of wayfinding, the transport strategy team are looking at the Legible London for the area and is ensuring that that is taken into account. I think if Bruce would like to make any further elaborations on that, thank you.
Yeah, so this project will reinstate the finger post sign that's there now, but to match Legible London for consistency. We're doing a we have done a wider review of Legible London, and there'll be some additional Legible London totem going in on Golden Lane, and we've also changed the way that the leisure centre is shown on those maps, so it's easier to see on that. In terms of signage, the leisure centre itself through the estate, that's been something that is being looked at by the leisure centre refurbishment project. So it's separate to this project, right? But we are talking to them.
I just wanted to add to that the chairman and I did do a walk round with a Golden Lane resident to look at the signage, because it is an issue in terms of wayfinding, but also the heritage signage on the estate, and making sure that we're actually looking at that as a whole, because that's really, really important for the estate. So thank you. Should we go to vote?
Yeah.
Favour?
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Very good. So now we're on to Ken, outstanding references. Anybody got any outstanding references? I don't think so. Let me have a quick look at it.
Well, King William Street parapet's been covered earlier in the meeting. Old Jury, I think we can take off now. And Bank is on there, but is just progressing through the ETO at the moment. So I don't think there's anything else under those items, Chairman.
Thank you, Bruce. 11 questions on matters relating to the work of. Yes, Alison, go ahead.
So, Chair, thank you very much. I've submitted 3 in advance, one of which I think I need to take in private session, and an extra one I want to add if you'd give me permission. The first one is regard to the Queen Street shared space area, which is shared by pedestrians and cyclists and wheeling people. I know that during the summer, or perhaps September, there was actually a review by video of that interchange, and those of us who attended one of the police exchanging places sessions knew how complicated life is at that crossing during the busy morning rush hour. So I wondered really what was happening with that video. I think we were hopefully promised to have it today, but I hope it will be coming in the near future. And perhaps we could have an update from Bruce if that's where it is. It is an area, can I just sort of add, that anecdotally everybody thinks is dangerous and difficult and awkward. So the video is meant to be trying to establish whether that's the case in real time on video.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the notice. Yes, so we did video surveys of the major shared use spaces that we have where pedestrianised spaces that people can cycle through as well. So that includes Queen Street, but also Moorfields and Little Britain as well. So as you said, the surveys were done. We've had the first report back from the consultants, but we've asked them to do a bit more analysis and a bit more work on that as well. So we unfortunately means that we didn't make this committee in terms of bringing that that report to you, but we will bring it to the first committee of next year for it. So yeah, that's done, but just a bit more work was needed.
Sorry, if I can get my second question. I'm now deputising for Tom Slay on the London Council's Transport and Environment Committee. So there's all sorts of interesting things that come up. And the latest one was about a scheme at Westminster where they've been using what they call simple zebra crossings, which basically amount to just painting white bars on the road at points where they want to have junctions. So there's no Belisha beacons, there's no other kind of intervention, but it's really, I suppose, one up from just raised curbs at some of the junctions, because it makes people think, gosh, need to stop if you're in a vehicle, and it allows pedestrians the better right to go across, which we know the highway code does allow them to do at junctions. It seemed to be a very quick and easy way for Westminster to be improving their traffic flow and pedestrian use. And I wondered whether we'd thought about it here in the city, and if the pros and cons perhaps could be assimilated as a way of improving pedestrian access.
And when you answer, Alison, could you also mention whether it has any legal repercussions? In other words, if you just paint on the road, does it all of a sudden become a...
The point about it is actually they're not enforceable as such, but it's just a visual kind of prompt, as I understand it.
Yeah, so Westminster are trialling the Manchester. So just so everyone knows what we're talking about here. So this is at side street junctions. It's basically a zebra crossing across the junction on the side street that doesn't have any Belisha beacons. They've been previously trialled in Manchester briefly. Westminster have are doing a larger trial at the moment, and they've also been looked at in Wales as well for it. As you said, they're not currently carry any kind of legal weight for that. They're not an authorised road marking from the DFT for it. Then they are something that we did have conversations actually with Active Travel England about the possibility of trialling here, but we decided not to go ahead with that. That was a few years ago. We are watching Westminsters with interest and have had presentations at various officer groups on those as well for it. Our focus at the moment is on narrowing side streets where possible and raising those junctions as well. So that's where we're focused at the moment, but we'll keep an eye on what comes out of Westminster, and especially if anything comes out from DFT in terms of formalising that as an arrangement.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah.
My third question, which I mentioned to you over lunch, but it's
yeah, sure.
unfair, and it's really for Ian, I think. It's to do with events on the highway. I'm aware of 3 events coming up, which I don't think this committee has heard about. First of all, the Lady Mayor's Appeal wants to have a motorcycle rally, I think we could call it, in June. I think it's going to rally outside St Paul's Cathedral and then zoom off to Essex for a hog roast. We're not bothered about that, I don't think. But I'm a bit bothered about lots of motorcycles on our highways congesting. First of all, I think it is actually on a weekday. But secondly, noise and pollution from motorcycles, which, although there are electric motorcycles, I expect most of these will not be electric. That date has been advertised. It's either June the 11th or the 12th. I'm sorry, I just didn't double check it. So that's the first thing. It has permission being granted, and does this subcommittee not need to give permission? And I just wanted to give a warning about that pollution aspect of it, because when a go-kart race was suggested some time ago, the city's response was it has to be electric, it can't be petrol. The second point, less pollution in one sense, but still disruption. There's a suggestion that the nocturne, the cycling nocturne, might be coming back. I haven't got a date for that, but that it's a cycling race, if people didn't know about it, and it used to happen in Smithfield, then in Cheapside. And there was another secondary cycle event, and I'm told might be happening in Guildhall Yard, but I have no more details than that. But Phil Saunders, who I'm sure you'll remember, Ian, from the days he was a lawyer, solicitor here at the corporation, I think is involved in both of those cycling events.
Okay. What we bring to this committee once a year usually around February, March time, is a summary of the major events that take place on our streets. And I typically classify major as those that require road closures. So of the three you've mentioned, the Nocturne would absolutely be on that list of events that would come here. In terms of Guildhall Yards, an event confined to Guildhall Yard is not on the public highway, so it's actually a matter for City Surveyor's remembrance as Guildhall management aspect to it. In terms of other people doing things on our streets, it all really depends whether we feel they actually need our permission to do something. Something where you have a group of people getting together and just deciding to have a thing where they all congregate together and then head off somewhere is not something that they need local authority approval, consent, what have you. So normally we get involved in things where they need an element of management. And say, some cases that's road closures, but sometimes that's fixtures and fittings being put to the floor and stewarding and that kind of thing. But if you don't need that, things like sort of Hurley King parades that are stuck to the footway, those sorts of things, we're usually made aware of them, but we don't actually need to license them. You can just do them. Our public foot highway is available to the public to use. So what it sounds like what you're describing on the first of those may be one of those where actually you want to do something like that. You can meet in front of the steps of St Paul's. You don't need anything from us to do that. But I saw John scribbling down. The events team sits under John, so we will check. But we have, we get involved in and are aware of 40, 50, 60 events a year, of which we bring to this committee usually about 12 to 14 that are of a major ilk. So if I focus on the Nocturne, yes, the Nocturne used to be at Smithfield. It then moved, it outgrew Smithfield and moved to a Cheapside-based event. It then finished for a number of reasons. That was pre-COVID. Yes, they have made us aware of an ambition to come back to the city, and frankly, we welcome it. We have lots of mass participation running events, but nothing really around cycling. And the Ride London event is no more that TfL used to promote, so we don't have anything that's related to cycling. The proposal that they have put forward is a 2-day event rather than a 1-day event, because to be fair to them, they see the opportunity of Destination City of saying, let's try and do something that actually attracts the city business community on a Friday, in addition to the Saturday aspect that we know they can deliver. The route would have to be different, because the route previously went around St Martin's le Grand, which of course isn't available with all the roadworks. So those discussions are being had at the moment. It would be wrapped up into the report earlier in the year. The key aspect at the moment is the Friday, and they have an ambition to include Cheapside, Poultry, Bank Junction, Queen Victoria Street. It's that sort of area. And a weekday event, daytime, which what it would be, I'm sure, hugely attractive to businesses and that part of our community, but would require bus diversions for the entirety of that window. So not surprisingly, TfL have a number of concerns. So those conversations are going on at the moment. There are some fallback plans that if TfL won't agree to that, or just the disruption is too great, because it's not just the bus passengers, but it would be the entirety of that sort of central part couldn't be serviced for that day, probably. We have a lot of things to talk about. So I know Sam Hutchins from the sports development team, Edward Lord, if he were here, there was a presentation from the Nocturne team to the sports sounding bar, which the chairman here was attending last week. So discussions are being had. Just to be clear, the authority to close a street is delegated to officers. So we don't have to bring something forward that asks permission to close a street for an event, but clearly this committee having visibility of that is important. So at the moment, it's still talking, more than talking about talking, we are talking about the detail of it. And then when we've got something that we think is actually workable, absolutely we'll make sure this committee is aware of it.
Yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
If I made 2 queries that I've raised before the meeting, and I think the first one the deputy chair also has an interest in, and that was the schemes by Westminster of turning badly parked bikes into money spinners using parking enforcement regulations. And I know I've raised this, and I just wasn't quite sure where we'd got to with it. And I've got another question, but I'll wait for.
Sure.
That's all right.
I think the best way to put this at the moment is we're reviewing we're reviewing our options and we're reviewing what Westminster are doing. I appreciate in the way that you put that, you're actually quoting Westminster. Westminster pitched this as a money-making scheme in addition to dealing with the problems on their streets. To be clear, if we were to do this, it would be about dealing with the problems on the streets, because one of the key things is actually whether these fines are being paid. And it's only if that happens is this actually an incentive. But we are reviewing matters. We may have something to say soon.
Thank you. And it
Go ahead.
has been raised, as the Deputy Chair knows, it's a very live issue with residents, and you're quite correct to say it's not from the money-making point of view, it's from the safety, particularly of pedestrians, which comes on to the second question, and perhaps one for you, Bruce, really just an update of where we are with the Beach Street Healthy neighbourhood scheme, because again, residents in both Aldersgate and Cripplegate are concerned about the risks to safety with the very narrow pavements and having to keep stepping out into the busy cycle lanes, particularly if bikes are left.
Well, first of all, yeah, bikes shouldn't be on Beach Street. I've actually been making a point of slightly diverting my route into work to have a look down there, and I'm pleased to say, I'm not saying it's not an issue, but on the days that I've been down, it's been less of an issue than it has been in the past. And we'll keep the pressure on the operators to make sure they're keeping Beach Street, and we anyway ask them to prioritise streets with pavements that are less than 2 metres wide for removal of bikes, any bikes that are left outside of bays. In terms of the wider scheme, we don't currently have a live project for that. The healthy neighbourhood plan said that the earliest we expected to kind of initiate and start work on that would be next year, 2026, for it. But we need to secure the funding for that as well, and then also just think about the timing of it alongside the other things that are happening in the area, particularly the work that's going on Moor Lane at the moment for it. I think it will be, from past experience, we know it will be one that we have to do a lot of engagement and consultation around for it. So it's not one that we want to kind of rush into for it. But the Healthy Neighbourhood Plan does set out our wider ambition for that and the broad timetable for it.
If I could just add in the link to the brief discussion at Planning and Transport, when we were talking about the amount of development work going on along Beach Street, Silk Street, Goswell Road. So it's just making sure that we are adding all of that up in our minds together.
Just so everyone involved here, this will be addressed at the city question time. So I'm sure you'll be there, Deborah, and Siobhan, you'll be up there answering the questions, actually. And Jackie. Do you want to add something, Jackie?
Just to say, this is obviously, we have raised a number of times, and it is of huge concern to residents, but also to workers. So we are going to dedicate some time at the beginning of City Question Time to have a full panel discussion on where we're up to, and hopefully have an announcement for the new year.
To be clear, that's about Dockworth bikes, not Beach Street.
Yeah. Right, are we ready to go to exclusion of the public? Read the words.
Item 13 is the exclusion of the public, and members are asked to agree a motion that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act. Okay.
Agreed. Is it done? Oh, actually, we weren't public anyway. Right, that was a shame because we didn't. Right, Alison.
Sorry, I had a non-public question, and I apologise to those of you who were at Planning and Transportation, because with the Chair's agreement and wish, I've brought the question again, which is about speed cameras and speeding in the City of London, because I discovered through Home Office statistics, first of all, that the City Police were not enforcing 50% of the fixed penalty notice for motorists who were speeding in the city. That was as at April 23, actually. In April 24, I think will not be any better. In April 25, just the same. But added to that, the speed cameras, which are actually paid for by TfL, are no longer being used because TfL won't fund them. So basically, nobody is being caught on the fixed cameras for speeding by the city police. Now, the city police do some other enforcement for speeding with handheld guns, you know, whatever they're called on the side of the street, not guns, but collaborating, you know, what are they called? Anyway, speed guns. They are called speed guns. So people are being picked up for speeding, and they do lots of that across the city at spaces where they know that people speed, like London Wall. But I think that not prosecuting motorists for speeding is a road safety issue, which is why I brought it to this subcommittee, because road safety is under our remit. We know speed kills, although at the moment, possibly the deterrent of having a camera, which people think is actually going to stop them or penalise them, I guess is something. But actually, ultimately, they'll just speed and without any kind of inhibition, and that impacts our road safety. This is something I raised at P&T. They then were going to raise it at the Police Authority Board tomorrow. I had already raised it with the police back in February, but since no action had been taken, I started bringing it through these committees. So I am concerned that we should be thinking about that as a relevant committee for road safety, to the point that should we, the corporation, be funding these traffic cameras, for example. Thank you, Chair.
Welcome, Alison. I just would like to say, I think this is one of the best questions I've seen from a member to officers that produced such a shock from members that none of us were aware. So well done, Alison, for discovering and bringing it up, even though Ian's probably going to say it's not directly us. Go ahead, Ian.
So thank you for notice of the question. I think firstly to put it into context, the city police have said that this is relating to the 2-speed cameras that they have in the square mile. So as you say, they're still doing speed gun enforcement in other locations. It is, perhaps for this committee, the best thing I can say is I understand that it will be raised at Police Authority Board tomorrow. I understand senior officer, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner level, Assistant Commissioner level, will be addressing it. So I would suggest that, given resourcing and priorities around policing is first and foremost a PAB issue, that we allow them to have that question asked and to hear what's said by the police in that forum before we come back around to it. I am aware that other discussions are underway, which would not involve the corporation actually funding it, but a more appropriate mechanism is to see whether the Metropolitan Police can actually absorb what is effectively 2 cameras into their back office processing. So effectively, that's just a minor addition to their the number of cameras they're currently doing, rather than the city police employing their own staff just to deal with 2 cameras. That seems quite, if I say, an elegant solution if it comes off. So I know that conversation is being had, and I suspect that's what the Commissioner, Assistant Commissioner will refer to tomorrow. So I'd be very happy if you wished to have this on an outstanding reference in non-public for future committee. But as I say, I think for the moment, let's allow PAB to have the discussion.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Alison. Yes, Marianne.
Can I say on that point, we have Lower Upper Thames Street and Tower Hill, which are a complete rat run, and you bring up motorbikes. I mean, they come on a huge posse, make a hell of a bloody lot of noise. And then we also have the speed freaks with their hyped up cars. We've got 2 humped pedestrian crossings in Tower Hill, which is just outside the city. They roar up, hit the first hump, slow down, go over the second one, and then roar off into the city, into Byward Street. Whereas if you have a look at East Smithfield and the highway, which has a number of speed cameras, it's 20 miles an hour. The number of accidents has completely dropped. It is 20 miles an hour at night when there's no traffic around, because those cameras are live. And they will pick you up if you're doing 25 miles an hour. So that's really calmed the traffic down. And I've constantly asked Transport for London to put a camera on the junction of Byward Street and Tower Hill to capture people speeding, because those 2 pedestrian crossings, the Tower of London, the station, it's a very busy, congested area. And I am surprised that we don't have more accidents. But I do think that whole area does need calming down. So if someone could suggest to TfL to put a camera on Tower Hill, both ways. It would reduce that speed coming into the city and leading out of the city.
I think actually one of the things I need to clarify with the police is whose infrastructure is it? I believe you're saying TfL, it may not be TfL. It may be, if it's police infrastructure, it actually might have to be put there by the Met or the City Police, depending on which side the border it is. I don't think they're the highway authorities infrastructure. And one thing on funding I would say as well is that the local police force do not keep the money. That's part of the issue. So that's hypothecated back to the Home Office. So they don't get to keep the money that they generate. That goes back. And that's why they then have to bid for that money to come back to actually employ staff to do it. It's not like parking where we keep the money and we use that money directly to employ the staff to run the function. It's a circular benefit, and that isn't available to the police. They are stuck.
And it's also the same for bike infringements and cycle infringements. We don't get the money, do we?
It's cycle.
You catch someone, no, a bicycle, a cycle. If you catch a bike running across a red light, we don't get the money.
Same thing. Income from policing is absorbed by the Home Office. It's an argument so that there is not an odd argument, but it has been used on parking before. That if I'd say about parking, the argument can be because we get to keep the money, there's an incentive for us to quote over enforce and penalise drivers for minor infringements. That has been used in the past, and the past government were on the cusp of, before the election, actually campaigning to take money off local authorities and do the same thing on the basis that it works for the police. But I didn't agree with that argument because using the police's position as a case in point, there is not the money to invest in new infrastructure because the money's taken off them, and they have no money to actually incentivise them to actually do that enforcement. It's for the benefit of society, but they don't get the money to resource it.
Over enforcing running red lights. Yes, Tim.
Just following on from that, I'm very concerned about cyclists who don't adhere to red lights around the city. You can count them on your every single day as you watch them run these red lights. And this needs to be enforced. It makes it really dangerous. Crossing the road is now a dangerous activity, even if there is a green man, and particularly if you're visually impaired.
Yeah. If we get the money, Tim, I'm sure we would force it. I mean,
the police are enforcing it, and they set up the dedicated cycle squad with a focus on that as well. So, I mean, they can't be everywhere, every opportunity, but they are doing a lot of enforcement around red light jumping, people riding illegal e-bikes, and general risky and illegal behaviours by people cycling.
Alison.
2 bits of information, perhaps. The National Police Council, when 20 miles an hour was being brought in, said across the police forces that they didn't agree with it because they felt it was going to be difficult for the police to enforce it, and they were not happy about that, and they objected to all the 20-mile-an-hour zones. And because they would say a street like Upper Lower Thames Street doesn't look like a 20-mile-an-hour street, and everybody's going to be caught, and it's going to look like just a money-making exercise. That's point one about the police. The second point about the police I've now forgotten, but yeah, anyway, so that's quite an interesting point. Oh no, the local councils committee that I'm sitting on, the London councils have for some time been talking about local authorities taking on the role of enforcing speed on their streets. And I think I've mentioned this to you, Ian, and you said it's been rumbling around for ages and the local authorities, quotes, will never get round to doing anything about it because it is a whole extra infrastructure for us as local authorities. But if we were fining them, then we could collect and keep those fines potentially. So it has come back again because my comment about the city police prior to not doing any enforcement, they were not enforcing 50% of the fines that they got on the cameras. The Met Police are the same. They don't enforce about 47% of the fixed penalty notice that are got on their cameras. So I know it's because they haven't got the admin backup to do it. And they'll say they're not being paid by TfL to do it. So there's a lot of speeding that isn't caught up on these roads. So that's why I think London councils have been thinking, well, Met isn't enforcing, City isn't enforcing, let's get on and do it ourselves as individual boroughs. But how efficient that would be and how effective, I don't know.
Well, if that comes to you, Ian, I mean, we would encourage it.
I think I hesitate to say we'd be quite happy to do that, but it's the funding, it's that circular funding piece. We don't have the resource to just create it and then give the money to the Home Office. What I think one of my favourite ones that's been talked about is advanced stop lines. That's been talked about for years, which is currently still an offence rather than a contravention. It's a police officer has to deal with you as a driver if you go past the advanced stop line into the space where the cyclists are supposed to be. We could do that with camera infrastructure, but we're not able to because it's a criminal ticket, not a civil enforcement matter. We have to wait for the law to change.
Thanks, Ian. I think we would wrap up soon.
Yeah.
Then Marianne, last one, then be quick because
the
I promise you
question
around 2 hours.
The question is, what can we do
1 hour.
to lobby the government and the Home Office with London councils to keep a percentage of the fines that we collect to cover the admin and the costs that we're not out of pocket, so that there's more in enforcement?
I hesitate to say, in terms of national politics at the moment, lobbying the government to actually give money back to local government, local policing is not going to necessarily be successful. I think take a step back in terms of the specific question around speed enforcement. There are these options that the city police are looking at with TfL and the Met that should, if they're successful, resolve this to a degree that should be satisfactory. And yeah, and we can move from there.
All good. Close the meeting.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
9-4. That was closer than I thought.
Yeah, so I've got
Alison, thank you. Do it? All right.
So, I mean, we won't be able to comment on the application.
No.
What we can say, and what I do want to say, and I'll check with how to say correctly, is we want to encourage the development and have encouraged developers to listen to local resident concerns. Because you have a different set of stakeholders to what we